So, I want you to imagine just for a second that you are floating,
Okay.
but not in water. You are floating in the absolute crushing silence of deep space.
Oh, wow. Okay. Setting a mood.
Yeah, and it is cold. I mean, colder than anything you have ever experienced on Earth. We are talking the Kelvin scale here, just a few degrees above absolute zero.
Which is fundamentally hostile to life.
Exactly. And it is dark, a darkness so complete, so pervasive that it almost feels heavy, like a physical weight pressing against your eyes. And as you float there, suspended in this total vacuum, you look out.
And what do you see?
Distance. Unfathomable, honestly terrifying distance. We're talking about a 93 billion light year expanse.
That is, yeah, that's a number the human brain can't even really picture.
No, not at all. It's just a blackened velvet canvas where stars are just, well, as our source today puts it, they're diamonds stray.
Yeah.
Just random scatters of dust in a void that doesn't know your name, doesn't know you exist, and frankly, doesn't seem to give a damn.
Well, that is an incredibly bleak place to start the deep dive today.
It is, but it's the brute fact. That's the reality we have to begin with. Today, we are doing a deep dive into a really fascinating and honestly quite challenging piece of work. It's titled The Universe's Indifference by J.R. Ahmed.
Right.
And the picture it paints initially is one that a lot of modern people, a lot of skeptics, really feel deep in their bones. This idea that we are just specks on a rock spinning around a nuclear explosion we happen to call the sun, completely governed by what Abed calls gravity's cold, hard hand.
It's the classic argument that the universe is essentially a machine,
Hmm.
just a massive, silent, grinding machine.
Exactly. And the machine is totally indifferent. It's too big for personal care. It's too grand for human pleas. You know the old saying, if you scream in space, nobody hears you?
Because there's no air to carry the sound.
Right, the physics of it. But in this philosophical view, it's not just the physics. Nobody hears you because there's literally no one there to hear you. It's all just, quoting the source here, mechanical movements in a cosmic, careless dash.
But here's where we have to pause for a second. Because that silence you just described, that hollow wind of the void, what if that isn't actually the sound of absence?
What do you mean?
What if it's just a frequency we haven't tuned into yet?
Okay, let's unpack this, because you're hinting at the counter-narrative in our source material. And I want to be really clear with you listening right now. We aren't just going to do some standard religious versus secular debate here.
No, not at all.
We are looking at the exact same data set. We are looking at the physics, the biology, the astronomy. Everything is grounded.
Right. J.R. Ahmed presents this idea of indifference not as a definitive conclusion, but as a challenge, a sort of misinterpretation of the data. The force argues that what looks like a cold, unfeeling void is actually a symphony of constants.
It's a symphony.
Yeah, that the silence is actually a hum of incredible precision.
I mean, a symphony feels like a pretty massive romantic stretch when we're literally talking about vacuum decay and entropy and the heat death of the universe.
It sounds like poetry, sure, but it's actually rooted in hard physics. The idea is that we are looking at the exact same numbers, the immense size, the unbending laws, the freezing temperatures. But where some see the chilling mark of emptiness, the source argues we should be seeing the shimmering purpose of design.
The concept of al-Hakim.
Exactly, Al-Hakim, the all-wise, the idea that coldness and vastness are actually required parameters.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We are going to sit right in the middle of this tension. We're going to look at the universe as that careless dash of mechanical movements, and then we're going to pivot. We're going to look at it as a cosmic classroom designed with these crazy razor-thin margins.
It's really a debate between the void and the volume. Is the universe dead, or is it merely quiet because it's waiting for us to actually listen?
Let's dive into the darkness first. Segment 1, what the source calls the chilling mark. Because the text actually does a really, really good job of articulating the atheist's challenge. It doesn't shy away from it at all.
No, it doesn't set up a straw man. It creates a complete steel man of the skeptical argument.
Yeah. It fully acknowledges that the universe is frighteningly large. It starts right off with that concept of scale we were just talking about, the disproportionate drama of it all.
Right, and this is the thing that truly keeps people up at night. The universe is billions upon billions of light years wide, and Earth...
I mean, calling it a fleeting speck is almost too generous.
It's mathematically nothing. We are a rounding error in the cosmos.
We are, and the logical argument goes, if there is a manager, a creator, a god, whatever you want to call it, why is the office so big and the employee so unbelievably small?
It's the ultimate inefficiency argument. If the whole purpose of the universe is humanity, or even just life on Earth, Why waste all that space?
Right.
The source quotes this sentiment so perfectly. It says the universe is too vast for personal care, too grand for human plea. It heavily implies that the sheer real estate of the cosmos proves we just aren't the point.
Exactly. It really feels like walking into a cathedral the size of a continent just to find a single, tiny ant sitting on a pew in the back row. You'd instantly assume the cathedral wasn't built for the ant.
Right, the ant is incidental.
Yeah, the ant is just a byproduct of some dirt in the cracks of the floor. And it's not just the size that makes people feel this way, it's the rules of the house, the impersonal laws.
This is the second major pillar of the skeptical argument in Ahmed's text. The laws of physics. Gravity, thermodynamics, electromagnetism, these things are utterly ruthless.
The text says they show no bias to beauty, no mercy in the land.
Which is a very poetic way of saying that physics simply does not care about your morality. It doesn't care about your personal narrative or how good of a person you are.
Right. I mean, think about it. If a child slips off a cliff, gravity doesn't pause to check if they're innocent.
No.
Gravity doesn't check if the child's mother is at home praying for their safety. Gravity just pulls. It's a pure mechanical movement. The source actually talks about this concept of verifiable suspensions, or rather, the total lack of them.
Verifiable suspensions meaning miracles.
Meaning the lack of miracles, yeah. The atheist argument is that if there were an actively caring deity, we would see the laws bend when they needed to.
We'd see the child float gently to the ground.
Exactly. We'd see the terminal tumor just vanish instantaneously on an X-ray. But instead, we see what the source calls no miracles bright flash. Just the grinding gears of cause and effect. It's predictable, sure, but it is coldly, brutally predictable.
And that leads directly into the third problem the text brings up, the problem of randomness. Because if the laws are blind, then the events they cause just feel entirely random to us. The source mentions a pandemic sweeping gale, or asteroid strikes, natural disasters.
There's this haunting line from the text, unanswered prayers whisper on wind's unfeeling breath.
Oh, that's heavy.
It is. It perfectly captures that feeling of just screaming into the void. You have these massive catastrophic events, huge earthquakes, plagues, tsunamis, and they just happen.
Without prejudice.
Right. There's no guiding pattern evident in the rubble. It's just random events thundering down on us.
And if you follow that skeptical logic all the way to its natural conclusion, which the source outlines really well, you end up with psychological projection.
Ah, the comforting soft lie.
Exactly. The psychological theory is that ancient humans looked up at this blackened velvet sky, felt utterly terrified by the cold indifference of it all, and essentially decided to paint a friendly face on the empty canvas.
We invented a caring deity because we literally couldn't handle the reality of being completely alone in the dark.
We're projecting a parent figure onto a blank wall because we're scared children. That's the core of the argument.
And honestly, it's really compelling. When you look at the sheer, unimaginable violence of a supernova or just the dead silence of a rogue planet floating in deep space, it's really hard not to feel like an accident.
It is.
It's hard not to feel like we are just some weird conscious moss growing on a wet rock.
It's a visceral feeling. But, and here's where the massive pivot happens in the deep dive today, and it happens quite abruptly in the source material too.
Yeah, the text dramatically shifts gears. It goes from outlining the atheist advance to presenting the Quran's answer.
And the really crucial thing to understand here is that the shift isn't about denying the scientific data.
No, not at all.
The rationalist perspective, the Quranic perspective presented by Ahmed here, doesn't try to say, oh, actually, the universe isn't that big, or gravity isn't really consistent.
It doesn't fight the math.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It completely acknowledges the blackened velvet. It acknowledges the ruthless laws. But it entirely rejects the conclusion that these facts equal indifference.
So how do you get from gravity's cold, hard hand to a merciful embrace using the exact same data? Because to me, that seems like a massive leap. It feels like we are looking at one of those duck-rabbit optical illusions.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right, like one person looks at the drawing and sees a duck, the other person looks at it and sees a rabbit, but the actual ink on the page hasn't changed a bit.
That's a perfect way to frame it. The ink hasn't changed. The physics haven't changed. But the interpretation of what the physics are actually doing has completely flipped. The source argues that you have to reread the word indifference as consistency.
Explain that, because I'll be honest, consistency sounds like a corporate buzzword for middle management, not some profound theological comfort.
All right, let's go back to your example of the child falling off the cliff.
Yeah.
It's deeply tragic. It breaks our hearts. But the rationalist argues, what if gravity actually did pause every time someone prayed? or every time an innocent person was in mortal danger? What would literally happen to the universe?
Well, I mean, it would be entirely unpredictable. If gravity suddenly turned off for me to save my life, does it also turn off for the car driving next to me? Do they just float away into space?
Yes. It would be absolute chaos. It wouldn't be a cosmos at all. It would be a casino.
Just totally random outcomes based on who is asking for what?
Exactly. The source points out that the predictable cycle, the fact that the sun rises every single day without fail, that gravity always pulls down at 9.8 meters per second squared. That is not evidence of a cold absence. It's actually evidence of an ordered, pure delight.
So you're saying that consistency itself is the point?
Yes. The source quotes the Quran regarding the day and night's precession, the stars' unwavering flight. These massive mechanical movements are specifically described as Ayah, signs.
Signs of what, exactly?
Signs of deliberate maintenance. The argument is that this unyielding reliability is the exact thing that allows life to exist in the first place. It's what allows science to even function.
Because you can't test something that changes its behavior constantly.
Right. If the physical laws of the universe changed based on a deity's daily mood, you literally couldn't do physics. You couldn't engineer a bridge. You couldn't plant a seed and plan a harvest. You couldn't even confidently walk across your living room because you wouldn't know if the floor's molecular bonds would hold you this time.
That is a really interesting flip. We usually think of miracles, actively breaking the laws of physics, as the ultimate sign of God. But the source is explicitly saying the laws themselves are the sign.
Precisely. It's the stability. The text calls it impartiality's grandeur. It's not that the universe doesn't care about you. It's that the universe is faithful to everyone. It keeps its promises every single time.
So gravity treats the billionaire and the beggar exactly the same.
Exactly. It treats the king and the pauper identically under the law. That isn't cruelty. That's ultimate justice.
Which brings us to the whole concept of the symphony, because as the text points out, it's not just that the laws are stable and predictable, it's that they are tuned.
Yes.
And I gotta say, this is where the empiricist inside me starts to get a little uncomfortable, because when you actually look at the numbers, they are frankly bizarre.
This is where the deep dive gets really mind-bending, the symphony of constants. The source describes the fundamental laws of physics as a razor-thin embrace.
I really love that phrase, razor-thin embrace. It sounds so dangerous and comforting at the exact same time.
It is dangerous, because when physicists look at the constants of nature, the baseline strength of gravity, the electromagnetic force, the cosmological constant, they aren't just arbitrary numbers. They're dialed in to an absurdly, almost comically precise degree.
Right. We hear about this a lot in the fine-tuning argument, but for you listening, give us the quick summary. Why does it actually matter? Why should the average person care about something as abstract as the cosmological constant?
Okay, let's take the expansion rate of the universe right after the Big Bang. This is a specific number that determines exactly how fast space itself is stretching outward.
Okay.
If that rate of expansion were slightly faster, and I mean a fraction of a microscopic percent, matter would have dispersed way too quickly.
Meaning the gas clouds from the Big Bang never get the chance to bunch up together.
Exactly. No bunching up means gravity never gets a strong enough foothold to pull matter into dense pockets. So no stars ever form, no galaxies. You just get a cold, dark, rapidly expanding mist of hydrogen gas. Forever.
Okay, so that's option A, the cold mist. What about option B? What if the expansion was just a tiny bit slower?
If it were slightly slower, gravity would have won the tug-of-war way too easily. All that matter would have pulled back together, and the entire universe would have crunched back in on itself before life ever even got started.
Big crunch.
Right. It would have been a quick cosmic blip. Expand, stop, crunch, done.
So we are literally balancing on a knife's edge between becoming a cold eternal mist and an immediate violent collapse.
A razor's edge. And it's not just that one dial, it's dozens of them. The source argues this incredible balance isn't random fortune's gamble, but wisdom's timeless grace.
Let's do another one. What about the strong nuclear force?
Oh, that's a great example. If the strong nuclear force, the thing holding atoms together, were even a tiny bit weaker, hydrogen wouldn't be able to fuse into helium.
And no fusion means no stars.
Right. And no stars means no sunlight, no carbon, no oxygen, no life. The entire universe would just be a dark, boring chemical soup.
So the pure skeptical challenge is, look, it's all random. We just got lucky. And the rationalist counterargument is, if it were truly random, you wouldn't even be here to call it random.
Exactly. It's the anthropic principle, but elevated to a theological level. The source introduces this concept of Al-Hakim, the all-wise, The underlying idea is that this hyper-precision is essentially a signature on the canvas. It's not just blind luck, it's biquidar.
By Qadar, that translates to due measure, right?
Yes, it's a phrase directly from the Quran,
Yeah.
verse 54:49. We have created all things in due measure and proportion.
And the text pairs that with this really incredible image of the twinkling of an eye.
Yeah, the source explains that the command of the Creator is like a single word, but it's executed through these insanely complex laws almost instantaneously. The universe isn't a careless dash at all. It's a deeply purposeful unfolding.
But I have to push back a little here. Just playing devil's advocate, or the empiricist, I guess.
Feel correct.
Even if it is perfectly fine-tuned, it's still mostly completely empty space. We're right back to the scale argument from the beginning.
Right.
Okay, sure, the gravity is dialed in perfectly for us. The strong nuclear force is perfect. But why do we need 93 billion light years of empty, freezing room just to have one little blue planet with coffee shops and deep dives? It still seems incredibly wasteful.
That is the ultimate efficiency question.
Yeah.
Why do we matter if we are physically so small?
Yeah.
And what I love about Ahmed's text is that it addresses this head-on by actually agreeing with the scale.
It agrees. It doesn't try to argue that Earth is somehow the physical center of everything.
Not at all. It cites verse 40:57. The creation of the heavens and earth is certainly greater than the creation of mankind.
Oh, wow. So the Quran itself is explicitly saying, yeah, you guys are actually very small.
In terms of physical constitution, absolutely yes. It explicitly states the cosmos is functionally greater in its physical structure. But here's the pivot, and I really think this is the most fascinating part of the deep dive today. It uses the laboratory analogy.
The laboratory analogy, I don't think I fully grasped that on the first read-through. Break it down for us.
Okay, think about a scientist. Let's say a brilliant Nobel Prize-winning physicist. She is working on a massive breakthrough experiment to find a completely new subatomic particle.
Yeah.
To do that single experiment, she might need a particle accelerator that is miles and miles long. She needs a super complex, massive facility.
Sure, like CERN in Switzerland.
Yeah.
The Large Hadron Collider, that thing is gigantic. It literally crosses national borders.
Right. Now look at the sheer physical comparison between the two. The particle accelerator is millions of times bigger than the scientist. It consumes vastly more energy than she ever will. It is made of immensely more matter. But what is the actual point of the accelerator?
The experiment, the scientist's work, the discovery of the particle.
Exactly. The massive machine serves the mind of the tiny scientist. The source argues that the universe is essentially a law-governed laboratory, and humans, we are the trustee, the Khalifa.
The trustee of the lab.
Yes. The greater creation, meaning the massive cosmos, is just the necessary background. It's the required infrastructure for the lesser creation man to exercise intellect, or ego.
So our physical size isn't a sign of our insignificance at all. It's actually a sign of the sheer magnitude of our mission.
Precisely. A scientist needs a massive, stable lab to run significant experiments. The source argues that for human beings to have true moral agency, to understand complex laws, to discover the sciences, we needed a universe exactly this big and exactly this stable.
Because you can't have organic chemistry without stars cooking the elements.
Right, and you can't have stars without gravity and vast, vast amounts of space for all that gas to collapse over billions of years.
That reframes the whole waste of space idea completely. It's not wasted space, it's necessary infrastructure, like the empty space inside a giant server room.
And it deeply connects to the idea of intellect as the bridge. The galaxy is massive physically. It burns with unimaginable fusion. It spins. But can the galaxy actually understand itself?
No. I mean, a star doesn't know it's a star. It just follows the laws of physics and burns. It has absolutely no self-concept.
But you do. You can look through a telescope at that exact star, calculate its mass, figure out its chemical composition, and even give it a name. The source makes this point so clearly. Physical size does not equal value.
Right.
The human mind can encompass the entire universe conceptually, which makes the human mind, in a weird way, functionally larger than the universe it observes. We provide the meaning. The universe simply provides the matter.
That is, and that's deep. It actually reminds me of that line in the text about the interconnected cosmos. The source mentions communities like you.
Yes, quoting verse 638. There is not an animal on the earth, nor a flying creature on its two wings, but they are communities like you.
What does that imply for us?
It challenges the whole lonely void idea. It challenges the isolation. It says that everything, animals, insects, even the stars, in their own mechanical way, are organized communities under a unified governance. We aren't just a random speck in a chaotic void. We are a specific community within a much larger, highly structured ecosystem of communities.
Okay, so we've tackled the massive scale, we've tackled the unbending laws, but what about the miracles?
Yeah.
Because the core atheist challenge from the beginning was, show me a verifiable suspension of the law and I will believe. That is the classic demand. If God is real, write my name in the sky. And the rationalist response seems to be, well, you're looking for the completely wrong thing.
Right. We really need to redefine the word miracle. This is segment 5 of our outline, the miracle in the law.
Usually when people ask for a miracle, they essentially want magic. They want the marble statue to start crying, or they want the moon to split in half. They want literal law breaking. They want to see the system glitch to prove there's a programmer.
But the source points to law-fulfilling miracles instead. It uses the incredibly vivid imagery of the seed and the embryo.
Yeah, like seed to plant transforming.
Think about a tiny seed for a moment. Really visualize it in your hand. You take this tiny, hard, essentially dead-looking pebble. It looks like absolutely nothing. You bury it in the dirt, the dark earth, as the text says. You cover it up.
You literally bury it in a tiny grave.
Exactly. And then, responding to incredibly specific signals of moisture and temperature, it wakes up.
It activates.
It begins to unpack a genetic library inside itself that is unimaginably complex. It breaks its own shell. It pushes a fragile little shoot up through heavy dirt, actively fighting gravity, the very force that holds entire planets together. And it reaches toward a light source it has never even seen yet.
And then it just starts pulling carbon out of the thin air.
It extracts carbon from the air, minerals from the soil, and synthesizes them into physical structure, a leaf, a stem.
When you describe it exactly like that, it does sound like actual magic, but we just call it biology. We learned about photosynthesis in the 5th grade, got tested on it, and so we just stopped being impressed by it entirely.
And that is the trick of human habit. We slap a scientific label on it, and we completely lose the wonder. The source explicitly describes this exact biological process as divine artistry. It asks a profound question. Why isn't the transformation of dead dirt into a living, breathing, beautifully complex rose considered a miracle?
Because it happens every day.
Right. But it involves the impossibly precise coordination of chemistry, physics, and information theory.
And then the text takes it a step further and mentions embryogenesis, embryos slow shaping.
That's the development of a human baby, from literally a single microscopic cell, a single cell that somehow divides and differentiates perfectly into a beating heart, a filtering liver, a processing brain, a seeing eye.
The source describes this biological process as being exquisitely unrolled.
Unrolled is such a fascinating word choice there. It sounds so ancient, like a scroll.
It implies that the master plan was already there, hidden inside the DNA, just waiting for the right moment to be revealed.
The argument here is deeply philosophical. Why is law-breaking considered somehow more divine than this incredibly complex law-fulfilling? Think about it. If you saw a street magician pull a rabbit out of a top hat, you'd clap.
Sure, it's a neat trick.
But if you saw a brilliant engineer design a microscopic, self-assembling robot that built itself out of completely random spare parts in a dark garage, wouldn't you be vastly more impressed by the engineer?
Definitely.
Right.
It's the difference between the God of the gaps and the God of the source.
Exactly. The skeptical argument often heavily attacks the God of the gaps. That's the idea that God is only found in the shadowy things that science can't explain yet. Like ancient people saying, well, we don't know what causes lightning, so it must be an angry Zeus throwing bolts.
And then Benjamin Franklin comes along with a kite, science explains electricity, and the gap closes. And so God gets a little bit smaller.
Right. If your entire theology is based on what you don't know, your God shrinks every time a scientific paper is published. But the source text is arguing for the God of the source. Meaning the God who is the fundamental explanation for the order itself. The God who is, as Ahmed writes, transcendent yet completely immanent. He isn't hiding in the shrinking gaps of our ignorance. He is glaringly evident in the atom's sway.
The miracle isn't that the law was temporarily broken. The miracle is that the law reliably holds it all.
The miracle is that you have a physical heart that beats roughly 100,000 times a day, pumping blood through miles of vessels without you ever once having to consciously ask it to.
Which naturally leads us to the final, and I think honestly the most mind-bending concept in this entire deep dive today, the idea of continuous creation.
The B command, kun.
So let's set this up. A lot of people, even deeply religious people, tend to operate as deists in their day-to-day lives. They think God is essentially a cosmic watchmaker. He expertly built the clock, wound it up really tight at the Big Bang, and then basically went on a permanent vacation. He's distant, he set the initial parameters of the universe, and just let the simulation run on autopilot.
And the source completely rips that specific idea apart. It says, no distant watchmaker's sigh. It specifically cites verse 3682, the command be, or kun.
What does that actually mean for the real-time physics of the universe? I mean, are we talking about divine intervention every single millisecond?
We aren't talking about divine intervention. We are talking about divine sustenance every single millisecond. It implies that the stability of the universe we've been talking about is an actively maintained act.
It's not running on a cosmic battery.
No, it doesn't have an inherent power source.
Yeah.
The laws of physics are sustained literally moment by the active will of the creator.
So gravity isn't just an inherent independent property of mass.
In this specific theological view, gravity is quite literally a habit of God. It is a constant, unceasing renewal of the command be. If that command ever stopped for even a fraction of a second, the universe wouldn't just grind to a halt.
It wouldn't freeze.
It would completely cease to exist. It would instantly vanish into nothingness. Think of it less like a baseball that you throw, which obviously keeps moving through the air after you let go of it, and more like a note that you are singing.
A song.
Yeah. If you are singing a sustained note, that note only exists in the air as long as you are actively pushing breath over your vocal cords.
And the second I stop singing, the note doesn't just coast to a stop, it immediately disappears.
Exactly. The source suggests the entire physical universe is like that note. It is being continuously sung into existence, moment by moment, atom by atom.
Man, that completely changes the so what for you listening right now.
It really does. Because it means the chilling indifference we talked about at the very beginning, the sun rising on the good and the bad alike, isn't actually indifference at all. It's faithfulness.
It means the sun rises tomorrow morning, not because it mechanically has to, but because the command actively holds it there. It's a daily act of provision.
It takes the universe from being an aimless, dark backdrop and turns it into a living, purposeful dream.
A living scripture, as the source actually puts it near the end, written in light and matter's art.
It's a beautiful synthesis.
So, we have gone on quite a journey here today. We started out floating in the cold, hollow wind of a 93 billion light-year void. We deeply felt that chill. We felt the sheer insignificance of our size. We looked into the abyss, and the abyss stared back.
But then we realized that the coldness we felt might actually just be the necessary, cool precision of a sterile laboratory. We realized the vastness isn't a waste, it's the required scale for the great experiment of meaning.
We looked at the chilling mark of the skeptic and instead saw the shimmering purpose of the rationalist. We looked at the mechanical dash of the planets and heard the symphony of constants. We realized that the terrifying silence wasn't actually empty.
It was just a frequency we hadn't bothered to tune into.
And that really is the ultimate synthesis. The empiricist in me admits that the coldness of physics looks completely different when it's viewed through the lens of impartiality or universal justice.
And the rationalist side reminds us that the grand purpose is absolutely there, but it's exclusively for, as the text says, seeking hearts. You have to actively want to tune into the frequency.
Because it's not going to be forced on you. The stars are never going to magically rearrange themselves in the night sky to spell out, I am here.
No, they won't. They just continue to burn with a mathematical precision that constantly begs the intellect to ask the question, why?
Exactly. The universe is a classroom, the unbending physical laws are the lesson plan, and we are the students sitting at the desks.
Which leaves us with a final, really provocative thought to wrap up the deep dive. If we truly are the students in this cosmic classroom, what exactly is the final exam?
That is the question, isn't it? The source heavily implies that the exam is entirely about what you do with your agency. If the universe is the massive laboratory, you are the conscious scientist inside it. What moral and spiritual data are you collecting?
And what conclusions are you actively drawing from that data?
I want to leave you, the listener, with this concept of the living tapestry. Tomorrow morning, when you see the sunrise, try for just a second not to see it as simply a planetary rotation orbiting a ball of burning gas.
Try to see it as a direct message.
Yeah, a letter directly addressed to you, written in the very ink of photons and gravity. Ask yourself, if this unimaginably huge, hyper-complex system is actively keeping you alive right now, holding your atoms together, spinning the planet at 1,000 miles an hour just so you can take a breath, what are you supposed to do with that life today?
Look for the signs. They are literally everywhere if you just stop to read them.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope this shifted your perspective, even just a little bit.
Until next time.
And keep listening to the silence. You never know what you might actually hear.